with Roland Chirico. It's July 27, 2010 at Manchester Community College. Roland, when did you first begin working at the college?
1967.
And what were you hired to do?
I was hired, I had Fred Lowe I was state organizer for the teachers, Connecticut State Federation of Teachers. And I had Fred Lowe as a speaker. And then he invited me to come here as Director of Publications and Public Information, the first one. I was interviewed by Al Smith on the same day, who was chairman of the English department, the same day that Bob Richardson was interviewed. And that's when we met. And I was supposed to set up the public information office and write a catalog. They didn't have a catalog. And that was amazing. And that was my project then, to put, they have that very first catalog we put out. And we put this together from mimeograph pages and all sorts of discussions with the administration, the president, and Tatro and Ramey, Godey. And they really, everything was up in the air. It was amazing. The college had been in operation since 63, I believe. And the community college system was started in 65.
So what was the college like when you showed up here in the late 60s?
It was vital. It was, we were inventing a college. Fred Lowe was inventing a college, and we were his instruments. And I was in the office on East Center Street, right by Spruce, and just a big white house. We had classes at the Manchester High School, and of course in the Hartford Road building. And then of course they put up in '71. They put up the lower campus, which was supposed to last for 5 years. That was the warranty on it. And it was an exciting place. And Fred Lowe was a total inspiration. He was ready to try anything and everything. Give me something different. Give me something. I remember we had the newspaper, and he said, well, could we have one that's round maybe? Or maybe one that opens up this way. I mean, he was just, well, I don't know about that. And we had for a while, of course, that was the Vietnam time. We had some rebels on campus. We had the Gadfly was our official newspaper. It was a rather staid, very conservative paper. And then the rebels put out the Sadfly. It's one of my favorite stories. I just told Tatro this when he wrote me about the history they were doing. The Sadfly was a deplorable thing. It was full of profanities, and it cussed the faculty and administration. Ramey was going crazy. Harry Godey was on my back. Everybody was on my back. Can't you do something about this, Roland? That's outside my ken. I had nothing to do with it, but that wasn't the total truth. The person who actually supported that publication that the faculty was enraged about was Fred Lowe. I'd go into his office and he'd say, do they have enough paper? Do they have access to the mimeograph machine? Yeah. And I mean, this was his spirit, let them have their voice. I thought that was remarkable. And in the meantime, as I said, the faculty and administration were enraged by it because it was blasphemous, this paper. I wish we had a copy of it.
In addition to Fred Lowe, who were some of the other personalities that imprinted a memory upon you?
Well, of course, Fred Ramey was a biggie in there. Bob Richardson became chairman of the English department. He wasn't suited for that, really, and he, of course, became a faculty member. And Oh, David Gidman. I can think of Candy Tatro. Well, at that time, she was the mimeograph assistant on Hartford Road, running off mimeograph pages. And, offhand, it's hard to recall. Of course, the music director, and I was always interested in the music department, was Bob Vader, who was a human dynamo. And there's Jay Stager. Incidentally, these were mostly union people. Fred Lowe had hired a lot of union people from the Connecticut State Federation of Teachers. Vader had been a voice in that. So had Jay Stager. So had I been. I was the organizer. And those were the people that come to mind.
You mentioned moving into the Lowe building, and I know you spent a good portion of your career there. What was the culture?
I never, the Lowe building.
I'm sorry, I meant faculties.
What was the culture?
Faculties, yeah.
Well, that's hard to say. I was in Faculty West at the beginning, and then they moved us into Faculty East. A drastic move. But we got to like that. It was a very casual atmosphere. You could knock on anybody's door, and of course we had, as I said, you could tack things up on the wall. I had a bicycle rack in my office. I was right near the exit. I had a picture exhibition of my photographs. I don't know what else I can say about it. It was an exciting place. We had some rather quirky people on the faculty at that time. And of course there were altercations as the years went by. It was interesting. Most of them left. I don't know what else to say about the culture. This
I
could be more
remember
specific.
you as a stalwart in Lois Ryan's happy hour. Do you want to talk about that?
About the what?
The happy hour that took place in Lois Ryan's office on Wednesday afternoon.
That's right, we had the happy hour. Well, I don't remember about that, except I'd always eat her candy. She always had candy, but she came much later. She came along much later. She was not at the beginning. As you did, you came along. When did you come in? I remember when you first came in.
Full-time in 86, part-time in 78.
They had asked me to start up a media program. I did start the journalism program, the Journalism 1. I didn't believe in a media program. I couldn't support it. There are always two schools to that people should have a liberal arts degree and then have a few courses in journalism and communications. And then there were those who thought you could have a media program for first and second year college students. I didn't subscribe to that. I don't know what the conclusion has been over the years.
So you were involved in developing the journalism program?
I started the Journalism 1 course.
Okay.
And then we had the Journalism 2, and Larry Willard came aboard. That was second. And then I guess you were the next member of that department, really. And then, of course, much later, I guess, Please took over that. That was after I was pretty much out of here. She was not on the faculty then.
But you did spend a significant amount of your time teaching.
When I came, my assignment was 2 courses of English and half my time on public information and the catalog. And then after a year, the college was booming, and they asked me, the president said, well, teach 1 course and put 3/4 of your time in public information. And we did a 10-year plan, which I just collated, really. I mean, the board put that together. But all of those goals were reached long before 10 years. So by about 1980, I guess it was, they asked me to go full-time administration, the PR work and the catalog, or do faculty, but I chose faculty, and it was a good decision for me. As you know, I was a musician, and I did a lot of musical things here too. So I stayed in teaching.
Did you also taught speech classes, I believe?
I taught English 101, English 99, and then I got into the speech, effective speaking. Taught a lot of that then, mostly. And I had a big band on campus for 10 years, from 1970 to 1980. That was the Manchester Community College Concert Jazz Band. And we had that rehearsed, and we gave a free concert on campus. And so I was involved with a couple of things. And I used to work with the audiovisual department a lot. I'd always bug my buddies here, Scheidemann, and I was putting together those multimedia shows that you remember.
Could you talk a little about some of those multimedia shows?
Well, photography was a passion of mine, and of course this was fertile ground. I don't think anyone was really taking photographs at that time. I still have large archives of those, incidentally. Those I had students. I interviewed students, and I had little excerpts of students talk about this and that and so forth. And they really show that this was the open door, where everyone had an opportunity. People who hadn't taken advantage of their earlier opportunities, they had a second chance here. And so the open door, actually, I went around to all of the community colleges and took photographs elsewhere. But this was the head place. I mean, this was where the action really was. And I produced those, and we had very few showings. Then I did some for the English department, the humanities department. Maybe it was the Edge. I don't remember that one. Those were two projectors and synchronizers and all that bulky, the original mass media. So there's not much to say about those, except they're sitting in cans right now.
When you reflect upon your career, what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
I guess I was most proud of being on the ground floor when this thing was burgeoning. And everybody was really enthusiastic. Administrators were learning how to be administrators. Teachers were good teachers. They were all basically teachers. And, of course, we had excellent teaching here, as we probably still do. And it was a creative time. Bob Fenn was principal. He'd call us in and say, well, we have $50,000. How we spend it? And then I think we wrote a writing lab on the new campus. And it was just a very creative time. Bob Manning, of course, was busy developing the art gallery. And as a matter of fact, as I passed that gallery, I think it should today be named after him, because he did so much there with all those. He developed that program. And, of course, he had excellent teachers after him, too. But he was a prime mover in the artistic field.
Students, during your career, did you see a change in the type of students who attended?
Well, it seemed at the beginning we had more older students. And, of course, those were the joy. The older students, the retreads. Mostly women. And for a long time, I don't know how it is now, but our valedictorians were women with 3 kids and a full-time job, and they really set the curve. And little by little, I think there were fewer and fewer older students when I was here. And then yeah, there was a change, of course, like the society has changed. Things got more and more casual as far as students were concerned. It was, about the time I left, by that time we had all sorts of offices, and affirmative action office, and we had sexual harassment offices, and I always got the feeling that those offices had to justify their existence. I mean, you couldn't tell the student to take his hat off at the lectern in a speech class, because he'd say, "We got no dress code on campus." We had students who missed on the syllabus. We'd say, "You missed 4 classes and you can't take the final." That was frequently set aside by those offices. People who missed 10 weeks could come in, well, you got to let them take the tests. And so things got, as a matter of fact, they got a little bit too, I don't know what you want to say, just too politically correct, perhaps, is the word.
If you were talking to someone who had just been hired to start his or her career at MCC, what would you tell that individual?
Well, I'll tell them it's a good place to teach. The school does a lot of good, but you're going to get, but when you have a remedial 99 course, English 99 course, don't think that that's an 11th grade high school class or 10th grade. That's 4th and 5th grade English elementary school. You have to be prepared for that. People can barely write their name twice and spell it right. Some people, of course. I would say it's a great place to be, though. I mean, but it's for teachers, and I certainly would recommend it. I think the best teaching goes on right here. Well, we know it's much better than at the universities, because at the universities, teaching does not constitute much of your load. It's, I think, 15% of your evaluation, whereas here it's probably 99%. And so you're among a lot of good teachers.
Anything else you want to add?
Not about that. I don't know what else to say about it. I enjoyed my time here. I didn't expect to retire. In 1992, they came around with the first golden handshake. I had no intention of going to the meeting. I figured I would stay until I was 80, which I'm approaching now. But my division chairman, what's the name? Toby Tamarkin. Wonderful. Love Toby. Come on, Roll, let's see what they're offering. Toby, you're not going to retire. You're younger than I am. Let's just go see what they have. We went and we both signed the paper. And I said, what in the hell have I done? I didn't really mean to retire, but I did. And it was a good thing, though. It was a good thing. I guess I'd had enough. I'd been here 25 years or so.
I think we're good.